I want to ask you, good afternoon. I haven't received any exercise from you. I told you to start doing your exercises in chapter 2, but I haven't received anything from you. Is there any problem? Is there any problem? Why didn't you send me the exercise? I'm asking you. Yes, Latifa. Why didn't you send me the exercises? You haven't done them yet? Hmm? I'm talking to you. No one can answer? It's your problem. If you do the exercise, it's your for own benefit. If you don't do it, it's your problem. That's me. We stopped last week by talking about the any problem of what we did last week. Any problem? Any problem?
No, Professor, it's clear.
It's clear. Everything is clear so far. We talked about last week about the procedures discovered by Bloomfield, the end of that is the beginning of the 30s, which means exactly in 1933. And thanks to Bloomfield, we start describing the sound, the distribution of sound. And here we want to talk about stress. And stress for certain phonologists that is by the same argument that you have the absence or the presence of stress in sound can be considered as either different phonemes or allophones. And here, for example, for example, if we want to study the distribution of certain sounds, we have to study if they are either in if they are allophonic, which means variants, if they are allophonic, or variants. What do we mean by allophonic or variants? Or variants of the same phoneme, which means the pronunciation. We have the first condition that we have to use to have notice, that is, we have to recognize if they are suspicious pairs. Suspicious pairs in terms of what they are. In terms of points of articulation and manner of articulation, they differ only in one feature, in one characteristic. For example, if we take the sound the p and the b, they are allophones of the same phoneme. They are allophones of the same phoneme, which means they are variants. Where you can find the p, we cannot find the p. Where we can find the p, we cannot find the p. In other words, where the environment where p occurs, the b cannot occur. In that case, the pronunciation, depending on the context, differs from context to another context. Therefore, we call them in complementary distribution. Their distribution is one complements the other. That is, if you find the pair, you cannot find the pair. But they have to be suspicious pairs. What do we mean by suspicious pairs? They have certain features in common. If you take pair B, the three sounds that I gave you last week, that is, you have p, bim, they are all bilabials, but the p and the p, we consider them are more likely suspicious pair than p and the p and the m, because you have them, if we add them, that is, a p and the p, they share certain features, they have certain features in common, the characteristic in common, they are both bilabial stops, they are both bilabial, they are both stops, and they differ only in voicing. Whereas if we say meh, we add them. They are bilabial, but they are not suspicious pairs. In certain languages, we can consider it as suspicious pairs if we take p and the p, meh, and they are suspicious pairs because they are similar in voicing and similar in place of articulation. But the meh and the p, they are not more likely to be considered as suspicious pairs because meh is nasal, bilabial, and the voice. They differ only in one sound, and um, um, uh, for example, if there are variants of the same phoneme, therefore, how do I know that it is the same phoneme? That is for Bloomfieldian theory, Bloomfieldian procedure. He discovered two criteria to account for this the phonemic distribution, in which we have magnitude and what we call frequency. The more high, the highest, that is the highest, sorry, the most frequent one is the basic phoneme, and also the least mark is the least mark is similarly to this for stress. That is, we can say in certain languages the same argument for stress. If we have the absence or the presence, that is by the same token, by the same argument, the presence or absence of stress, you can say either we say stress or accent. When do we use accent and when do we use stress? Stress, if you have within the word, within the same word, within the same word, but accent is when we have a discourse usage, which within a discourse, within what we call, it has a meaning. For example, if we take this one as an example, here you have Moroccans are on linguistics. This one sentence can be accent or can be stress. Can be accent because it has a meaning, and can be stressed. You stress the word of different. This one, how many syllables? 1, 2, 3, and it falls on second syllable. Keen, and you have linguistics. Whereas here, artists, we cannot talk about stress once we have one syllable. We talk about stress if you have at least two syllables. At least two syllables. In other words, monosyllabic words we cannot talk about stress in monosyllabic words. Monosyllabic words, which means you have one vowel. Disyllabic words, you have two vowels. Once you have two vowels, for two syllables, vowels, two syllables, therefore we are talking about stress. That is, we need, once we talk about stress, we need two syllables, we need two vowels, we need disyllabic sound. And here, that is, in this one, it is stress, because we have within one word, and here artist, and this is given stress, and this one is not given stress. Whereas here it is either Moroccans are keen on linguistic. We can talk about stress if the word are stressed. That is, Moroccans here, stress falls on the second syllable. That is, here the vowel, here the final vowel is called ultimate vowel. Here it is a penultimate vowel. Here it is antepenultimate vowel. In other words, Moroccan, it is the stress falls on the second syllable, that is comparing from left to right, second syllable, and it is given, the vowel is the penultimate vowel. Stress falls on the penultimate vowel. When we're talking about the ultimate, penultimate, antepenultimate, we're moving from right to left. When about primary stress, secondary stress, it is from left to right. Therefore, here, when we're talking this one, this sentence is given it's an accent because it is a discourse. It is a discourse and it has a full meaning. Therefore, it depends. Here we are calling, for example, I said Moroccans are better than Japanese. Japanese wants to learn linguistics, but what I did use, Moroccans are keen in linguistics, which means that this code that is from what I did use, that is, I can say that Moroccans are good linguistics. Here it is an accent. Similar to this one, if we compare this one. Shall I call Jim and Mary? Shall I call Jim and Mary? Shall I call Jim and Mary? Look at this one. You have the same sentence, but that is the focus, I would say, between inverted commas falls on different category, different grammatical category. It falls on the subject, which is I, person, or the verb, or the coordinating conjunction. That is, and here, what is the difference between stress and the accent here? Accent, it has to do with the intention, the speaker's intention. And the discourse, it is a discoursal usage, and you have the same discourse, but it falls on different categories, and this shows that is a different answer, different response, because that is the focus here, the stress, the accent here falls on different categories. And from different categories, the answer, the response is different. According, that is, the person will respond accordingly. That is, if it is on the subject, which is personal pronoun, shall I call Jim and Mary? No, I'll do it myself. Here, if it is on the verb, because it responds, that is, the response must be on the verb. No, write them an email. Shall I call? And you have two persons. The answer only I would no, just which is here and here the categories. That is, you have to look at every single detail. That is that is the accent that falls on I, call, and Jim. That is, they are monosyllabic words. Monosyllabic words, they have only one vowel. I, the diphthong. O is a call, O is a vowel, and you have one syllable. Therefore, once it is monosyllabic words, we cannot talk about stress. We are talking about we cannot talk about stress. We are talking about the accents, because monosyllabic, the stress is predictable because it consists only of only one vowel. But if we're talking about stress, we need at least two syllables. In this word, in this 217 example, that is, it is used as a word. It is a word, and the word made up of two syllables. And syllable, therefore, stress. If it is two syllables, that is, it's not monosyllabic word. It is disyllabic word. Therefore, stress falls on the first syllable. That is, you have it falls on the first syllable. That is, stress here is stronger. This syllable is stronger. It is more prominent compared to the second syllable. The second, if it is stronger, that the second one is weaker, is weak syllable, weaker than this one. It is stress here is stronger. It is given much weight. And if it is stronger, it's stress louder, salient, prominent, and stronger. The other are weak. Go back to this one. Yes. By the presence or absence of stress, the accent in some languages can make two otherwise similar vowels either phoneme or allophones. In some languages, that is stress or accent can within a similar vowel can be considered as different phonemes or variants of the same name, depending on the language at hand. Before we embark upon the analysis of the aspects of human speech, let us first define stress. That is, we will define stress. What is stress as far as phonetic is concerned and as far as phonology is concerned. That is, phonetics, it has to do with the air. That is the speaker is and he or she produce, that is stress, that is on the sound given, but or the sound given or the phoneme given. But you feel this respiratory activity. You feel that stressful has an effect on the neighbors on the neighboring sound. But in phonology, why do we need phonological concepts? Phonology, because once we talk about phonetics, is pronunciation. It has to do with air. It has to do with the vocal tracts. It has to do with organs of speech, etc. But once we talk about phonology, we're talking about the system. Why do we need phonology? Why do we need the syllable? Or what aspect that is how shall I put it? Or what criteria can determine the process in phonology? Why do we need to determine the structural unit in phonological description? Why do we need a syllable? What role a syllable provides us in determining stress? These are the mechanisms that is used in phonology, because put in simple terms, a vowel is said to be stressed when the speaker, while pronouncing it, pushes a greater volume of air from the lungs than the amount air used in neighboring vowels. If you put stress, that is the air that you, greater volume of air that comes out from your lungs, you produce them, and then feel that the sound which is given stress, it's stronger, it's louder, it's salient, it's bolder than the other neighboring sound, neighboring vowels, if and only if the word more than one syllable. Thus, that is the perception that the native speaker had. That the native speaker has is that is you feel that you increase certain loudness compared to the adjacent vowels. That is, it's given much prominence. It is stronger. It is louder compared to the other one. This is what we call stress, because of the air that is you pushed up the air from the lungs and then you put them on that sound. However, this one, the respiratory activity above does not usually exclusively involve the vowel. Sometimes you feel that the sound that you produce, that is the stress that you produce on the vowel, it is also on the neighboring sound. That's why sometimes you feel that many syllables have given much stress. That's why we have phonologists or phoneticians. They give, for example, that is a word might have what we call primary stress, secondary stress, or tertiary stress. And but is we cannot determine which sound is given the prominence stress. In that case, phonology came as that is phonological rules, that is the determination of the syllable structure, both the syllable structure as a unit can determine the phonological description of the vowel, the role of the vowel. Because in a syllable, we can have in a syllable, we can have the crucial element of syllable is the vowel. But we cannot talk about stress without having a syllable, and we cannot talk about syllable without having a vowel. Therefore, the crucial in phonology, the definition, that's why stress, the syllable structure is important, is crucial in determining the stress, because it shows the importance, the valid, the focal importance of the vowel in syllable. But for the respiratory, that is in phonetic, that is, you feel that other neighboring elements are affected by the stress. You cannot determine which sound exactly is given the strength of or the stress. Here, for the syllable structure, the validity of the syllable structure is there because it accounts, that is, it's given, that is, the vowel is given much importance compared to the neighboring sound. For example, in syllable structure, that is the syllable structure, that is, in a syllable, you have sometimes it's composed of three major elements, of two elements, which you have the onset and rhyme. And the rhyme, why the second brand note is rhyme, because the rhyme, the focal element, the crucial element is the vowel. And in a syllable, you can do without the consonant, you can do without onset and coda, but the vowel is the focal element, is the crucial element, is the nucleus element, because it's very important in determining the stress. That's why the syllable is, the definition of a syllable is a constituent, that is, it consists of a vowel, of an obligatory vowel, which is the vowel which is obligatory. If we compare to the phonetics, is obligatory vowel surrounded by or flanked by the optional consonant. Optional consonant, as if in this example, that is the structure of the syllable. That's why we need the structure, the syllable. That is, you have in phonetic terms, syllable is the articulate gestures resulting by single chest pulse, one burst of pulmonic air, which means you have air is very important in determining the sound. But that is, when you talking about the activity, that activity, it can determine which sound is given much prominence. But when we're talking about the syllable structure that is phonological difference, in which it requires presenting arguments that support the existence of syllables. What are why do we need a syllable? Because the structure of syllable, you have a vowel surrounded by optional consonants. That is optional consonant. Why optional consonant? Here, is the syllable, because here we have a vowel without having a consonant. In that case, you have a rhyme, that is like this one. Yes, a syllable. This one is called the sigma, and the onset and the rhyme. The rhyme is the vowel here, and the coda. You can do without a. You have. We can talk about here the sigma. A. This one onset, which is a consonant, is empty, and the rhyme, that is the coda, is empty category, and the peak is a. That is the argument for this, that the rhyme, that is the syllable concept of rhyme, because the rhythm, the rhythm is done is through the vowel, through the vowel. That's why we have this one can be illustrated by the poetry in that is the sonnets. For example, they have it creates certain rhythm because the stress is on vowel, and therefore in the sonnet you have stanza, and stanza made up of lines, and in iambic pentameter, which means the stanza consists of 4 or 5 lines, I cannot remember. That is 5 lines, and then we have stress and stress, stress and stress. Thou art more lovely and more temperate. You have to feel that this one, that is, you have a certain rhythm, rhythm. That rhythm, why there is a kind of rhyme? Because the stress provides us with certain rhythm, certain rhythm. In that case, you have as a phonological, that is, in order to describe that, to describe the stress, we need the syllable, and the syllable representing argument that support the existence of why do we need that syllable? What as a structure unit of phonological description? That is the syllable as structure unit that help us to describe the system of that particular language. That is why English, for example, why does English consider stress is destructive? Why? What are the reasons? To solve this problem, we need to have the structural, that is the syllable. Is that clear? In that case, you have here, for that is you have phonological description, phonological definition, and phonetic description. Phonetic description. Phonetic description is to do with phonological description. It has to do with the rule, the validity of the vowel in a syllable. What is the role of? Why do we need the vowel in a syllable? That is, for example, in phonetics, which means you feel the other sound, which is other consonants, are affected by the vowel. That is, you cannot determine the exact stress where the stress fall exactly. Compared to syllables, no, you can determine the stress as structural unit. That is, no, the stress falls on the vowel, either on the ultimate vowel or on the penultimate vowel or antepenultimate vowel. But you have to determine this thing. And about this one, you have to use the description of, that is the word boundary. That is, in other words, you have to deconstruct the syllable, to deconstruct the word into syllables, because, and you cannot deconstruct, you cannot cut the word wherever you want. It's impossible. You have to follow certain regulation. In that case, we have to follow certain the rule that help us deconstruct the word, the syllables into the word into syllables. It was syllabification. Before, if you want to syllabify, you have to determine the environment where the syllable starts and ends. Therefore, we have this one is used by the S, and the S is bold. The consonant, however, the respiratory activity above does not usually exclusively involve the vowel. That is, you don't need. That is, it is vowel which is stressed or the consonant which is stressed. We don't know. The consonant before the consonant before the vowel, and sometimes the consonants after the vowel are also accurate with relative loudness. Sometimes you feel that the consonant that precedes the vowel and the consonant that follow the vowel are given a certain loudness, certain relative loudness, certain prominence in terms of stress. But this one is not true. That is, the syllable is crucial in this as a structure unit in determining description of phonological rule. That's why it creates certain, that is, for example, the vowel in Berber. That is, it spreads, it creates certain phonological process. One, the vowel is emphatic, is pharyngalized, which means is emphatic, is that is stress is given certain emphasis, express its emphatic elements to round elements, which create certain different pronunciation. Once you create certain different pronunciation or different either pronunciation, point of articulation at the level of point of articulation, or manner of articulation, the way you articulate it, it creates certain processes. What kind of processes? Certain rules in the pronunciation of certain that word. In that case, it is called phonological process. That's why we need the syllable. The syllable helps us to determine the processes that are created by using stress on certain syllable. In that case, and that is before talking about the phonological processes, that is, you have to determine where, that is, where can we the area where the syllable starts and where it ends. Like, for example, here and this one, the syllable structure, the syllable boundary is considered as by S, and this one, the S, big capital S, not small case letter S, but it is big. Like, for example, here, courtship, courtship, that is courtship, that is here. This is the first syllable, and this is the second syllable, which means it starts with k and it ends in t. But this, that is division, is not done haphazardly. It must follow certain rules. Therefore, we need to rules to, and the rule that it helps us to deconstruct this one. It is called syllabification. And you have, that is, for example, can we say the first syllable is cool, and then chip is the second syllable? Can we say par is the first syllable and T is the second syllable? Can we say part and E is the second syllable? Therefore, we have to follow certain rules to deconstruct, in other words, the word into syllables. Therefore, but we have to determine the word boundary, because it's very important in this, because my syllables start in this and end in this, my syllables start in this and end in this. Suppose that you have 8 syllables in a word. In case you have to determine certain regulation. Well, what are the regulation? We'll see them. Is that clear? And then, for example, here you have words, that is syllable boundary, and similar that we have here is word boundary. This one, word boundary, is very important. That is word boundary, and plus is morpheme boundary. Here you have, that is notational form, for example, and in notation form, if you have this one in notation, you have to express it in plain English. That is, you have t, aspirated, and unreleased t are all allophones of the same phoneme, where t occurs in initial position. How do you know that initial position? Because that symbol indicates the word boundary. Initial position, this one, why it is initial position? It is this dash, that is where that sound occurs in this one, followed immediately by a long vowel. What I see, I can translate it into plain English. And where here is occurred in intervocalic position, where the vowel, where it is preceded by a stress vowel. Intervocalic position, but I can say that is something is added here, where it is preceded by plus stress by stress vowel. And here you have here it is final position. This one initial position, but this one word boundary, final position. That is, unreleased occurs in immediately followed. That is, occurs in final position, immediately followed by by consonant, nasal consonants, and t occurs in swear position. That is, what is written in notational form, I can write it in plain English. Is that clear? And this notation, the environment, is very important. Why very important? It gives you the exactitude of the validity of the exactitude of the rule here. And also similar to this, if talking about strength, to determine the syllable strength, because phonologically speaking, because some stress in certain languages like Berber, that is stress, and it creates certain phonological processes. For example, phonological processes, it affects the pronunciation. It creates certain processes. Like, for example, if we take in English, the and l here. Look at this one. You have a l, dark L, and clear L. Play, leaf, apple. That is a, and pull. Feel, feel. Tell, angle. Look at this one. Notable, notably. If you move from adjective to noun. Notable, notably. Possible, possibly, economically, predictably. That is, you move from adjective to adverb. You change the pronunciation. It's the same structure which change the pronunciation, which means here the l, that is the l sound, is occurs in final position. That is systematic. That is systematic, which means it's that is all dark L occurs in a final position, whereas L we cannot determine its exact environment. Or there are variants of the same phoneme. What is the phoneme? The basic phoneme, the one which is frequent, that is more frequent, which is the L. لا, you can between consonants at the beginning, between consonants but not similar consonants, not determine the exact environment where the L sound is with where the sound occurs. And here also the theory of markedness. Markedness, this one, the least mark is considered as the basic form of phoneme. Here, L, dark L is marked. Look at this one. You have a diacritic here. You have diacritic here. There, diacritic here. The one which is the least marked, L, is the least marked. We are applying that is the Bloomfieldian procedure, in which you have the criteria that's developed by Bloomfield in accounting for the basic phoneme. Therefore, the least mark is the basic phoneme. Here we have two criteria. I said before that is, if you have one criteria, it accounts. But here in this data, we have two criteria. You have markedness and frequency. L is less marked than L, and it is more frequent than L. Therefore, the L is less the. But the dark, that is dark L, is that is, they are in complementary distribution, and allophonic variant is conditioned by the syllable structure. That is this one, angle. That is the first syllable. Gl, you cannot say a and is now. Is second syllable, but here the second syllable here, there is no vowel here, but you have L is sonorant, and some sonorant sounds, they play role of some consonants which sonorants are considered as a plus syllabic because they play the role of vowels. And this one, they are in complete distribution, and their allophonic variant is conditioned sensitive to syllable structure. Is the syllable structure which create this one? Is that clear? That's why that is syllable structure, which means it determines the different phonological pronunciation, phonological process, post-phonological process, because that is the L is conditioned by, it is systematic because it occurs in final position, and if it is final position, it's conditioned by syllable structure compared to L. Is that clear? Is that clear? Is it clear? Are you following?
Yes.
Here you have the existing syllable as structural unit of phonological description. Basically, a syllable is made up of an obligatory. What is a syllable in phonology? Is made up of an obligatory vowel, optionally flanked or surrounded by consonant, as can be seen into that is, you have obligatory. We need the syllable is a must. Why? As a structural unit, because it helps us to determine the processes, the new processes that are allowed, that processes, what kind of processes? Phonological processes, which means logical changes that occur within that word. Similarly, that is an example of distribution of L, that is L within a certain syllable, that is, it made that L syllabic first, and it occurs in certain environment. because it is this one, the distribution of this one is sensitive to is conditioned by the syllable structure, is conditioned by the syllable structure. And here you have the vowel y in phonetics, that is, you have phonetics, you have just the air which contributes, that is, we cannot determine which sound is given the stress. But in phonology, in phonological definition, you have the vowel is the crucial element, but surrounded by a certain optional consonant. That is, we can do without a consonant, but we can do without a vowel in a syllable, because in a syllable we need a syllable, because the stress falls on the vowel within that syllable, which is a crucial element in that syllable. And you have the main arguments. What are the arguments that you got this evidence? That's why do we have the syllable as structural unit of phonological description? We have four arguments or four evidence. The first one, you have a perception of sonority. The perception that is perceived that certain sounds are given more prominence than the other, more prominent than the other sound, or louder than the other sound, and involved in all underlined syllable in the example 2.14 above indicate that that is here 2.14. Yes, here courtship, party, company, complain, perceive, industrial, which means that is you have, that is, it's not, you feel that them has given stress, but it is not that, it is this one, that vowel which is given stress. Industrial, perceive, that is, you feel that the other elements, if you have a CV sequence, you feel that you have the other, that is the one which has given CV sequence, it is affected, but it's not the case. Is that clear? And you have to follow certain arguments. Perception of sonority, prominence as involved in the underlying elements in the example in 2.14 above indicate that they are psychologically real. This one, that is courtship, you are not given the court, which is given much more prominence compared to ship. It's courtship, that is given more problem. Why? Because native speaker, this is what we make a difference between L1 learning and L2 learning. Can we say that L1 equals L2? Some linguists say yes, we can have L1 equals L2. But certain in phonology, you cannot reach 100% of the native speaker, because your L1, your mind is already filled with L1, and it affects the target language, it affects the learning. That is, you've got an accent. And this one, why? Because the elements that is acquired, that is a natural context, etc., that is learned in the natural context, is psychological real. It exists in the mind of the native speaker. They cannot think twice about it to come up with these things. It's impossible, because it's a part of their arguments. It's part of their, that is, they cannot think. For example, if we take Japanese, that is, whenever you have a between vowels, it is pronounced as a r. It's not that they cannot produce it, but it is psychological real in their mind. That is, the rule is great in their mind. It is part of the mind. That is, whenever you have, it's not that is, you have Malika occurs between two vowels. This one is a rule. We can apply the rule that is the rule. Now, it is psychological real. It is part of their it is acquired. It is innate capacity of this one. That is, they cannot, part of the cognitive ability. That is, they cannot. If you ask a native speaker, why do you use this one? It's like that. No, it's part of the structure of their language, and it is acquired from the natural context. That's why we have America. It's not is whenever they can use the intervocalic, etc. But it is this one. It is a rule. That's why cannot. That is L1 cannot, instant context cannot equal L2. It's impossible. You cannot reach 100% of the native speaker. It's impossible, because your mind is already filled the language, and also the arguments that are put forward with this one, that we put this one, which there are some other factors. What age that is you have started learning the language? Are you bilingualist? That is bilingual, for example, bilingual students. If you person, sorry, bilingual person. If you either bilingual, or that is in which we can differentiate between bilinguality and bilingualism, which is different, and that is you learn two languages at the same time, either in schools or at home. It makes a difference. These were other factors, and you have you saw these things in other classes in S5. And that is existing. This one is the first argument. The second argument is the difference between accent and stress, the arguments that make a difference between accent and stress. That is in phonological description. That is, if you use stress, you have to differentiate between the syllable structure, in which you have at least a disyllabic word, at least two syllables, not one syllable. But if it is an accent, therefore you can have within a context, you need the context, and also you need discoursal usage. It's a discourse. It's part of pragmatics, and the pragmatics, it is a meaning. That is, a sentence is a full meaning, and it needs a context where the discourse is in that case is done. In that case, you have Moroccans are keen on linguistic. What makes you so? Because in the discourse that has been said, for example, Japanese and the Moroccans are learn linguistic, but I can say that Moroccans are keen on linguistics. What I deduce from this one, from the discourse, that Moroccans are good. This one, second argument. Notice that in 2:16, R cannot be stressed. Here they are. Cannot be stressed because it consists of one syllable, while stress requires at least two syllables to operate. Yet in artists, but in artists bears a stress because the word here consists of two syllables. It is a disyllabic words. Therefore, here and here it is one word. Well, what about that artist? I don't know. If it is an accent, you can say artist. What about that artist? The meaning is not there. The pragmatic or discourser use is not clear. You have only one word, and therefore word here, when you put stress here, it means here, that is the emphasis. I would say between inverted commas, the emphasis or the focus. That is here. It is not a monosyllabic word. It is disyllabic word. And the meaning is not clear in this one. Therefore, we're talking about the stress. And stress, there is a difference in prosodic weight. What do we mean by prosody? Prosody. In prosody, that is the structure's approach, consider stress as part of the segment. But it cannot handle all the because the element is if you want to account for the rule, you can have the rule which can bear the it must be economical. As well as it does not include all superfluous elements, and you cannot have redundant elements, and also general. This is the rule. That is the rule that you have to come with any exercise. In accounting for any exercise, it must be economical and as well as general. It captures generalization, general, because that is for Bloomfield, that comes up, that he came with the procedures. That is all the procedures that we have already tackled. That is, you can apply them to any language in the world. This word, it is general, it captures generalization, and also they are economical. And here, stress for generativist approach that is, they account for this at the level of the segment. But for Firth, and in Firth, it's 1940s, and Londonian school, it's the 60s. The 60s where that is the same time where the generative approach appeared. Therefore, they come up with they consider Firth as well as the Londonian school consider that stress is a part of the prosodic feature. What is a part of the prosodic feature? Prosodic features or characteristics is stress, intonation, intonation, and tone. Yes. Because there are certain languages that is you change the tone, you change the meaning of the word, especially in Chinese language, especially in Mandarin. Mandarin, that is, you have the same syllable, but you change the tone. Sometimes it is, for example, ma. That is, the tone changes. One it is a horse. One it is if it is raising, it is mother. If it is falling, it is mountain. If it is a flat, it is the horse. Therefore, it changes. What makes them? How do you know that this one? It is the context, which means the discourse, the pragmatic discourse usage can determine which that is the meaning of this one. That is here. It is beyond the segment. That's why the for the structured approach was proven inadequate to solve all the problems that exist in language, and therefore they come up with that's why the generative approach came and add certain things to complement to show that the structured approach is not adequate enough to solve all the problems that exist in the language. And they come up with the autosegmental phonology, that is, they study the tone language, and also metrical phonology. Metrical phonology is that is for the structures approach. They say that there is a dependency of levels. That is each level should be independent of the other level. And the famous example of Chomsky colors green ideously furiously. That is here. That is I'll repeat it again. And this one is that in terms of phonetics, in terms of phonology, in terms of syntax, they are perfect. It's a perfect sentence as far as syntax is concerned, phonology, morphology, etc. But in terms of meaning, it is meaningless. It is ill-formed. That's why for generative approaches, they revise their theory by providing a new note of grammar. That is, the grammar is not the grammar that we know about the classical grammarians, that is like in Greeks, etc. It's a grammar new, that is, in which you have each level. The grammar is composed of 4 components, in which you have phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantics, and each level must depend on the other level. You cannot work on its own, though there is a kind of autonomy in terms of terminology. That is, each level has its own. It's autonomous. It is autonomous as far as terminology is concerned, which means you name this one, you give the name, you turn this one, but in terms of how, that is, you have to bear in mind that is you have the structure affect the meaning, you have the phonology affect the structure, and phonology affect the morphology, which means there is a kind of interrelation that exists among levels. That's why they opt in metrical phonology, they opt for what we call the tree structure, because the stress falls on the segment according to the structured approach. But for the generativist approach, as well as the Freudian and the Londonian school, they say that the stress is part of prosodic feature, and prosodic feature can be studied beyond the segment, above the segment. Therefore, we need a certain structure, certain schema to solve the problem, and they opt for this tree structure. In a tree structure, this is a kind of layers in which you have the mother bears more constituent than its daughters, and so on and so forth. And this one, they opt this tree structure from the syntax, because each level depends on the other level, and they apply it and they use it to phonology to solve the problem of, because for the structure is the stress falls on the segment, but it's not beyond the segment. And the structure is this starts before the Londonian school. This starts before the 13 theory. Put different wise stress shows the strength prosodic weight. A relation between, here you have stress is used to construct strong syllable and weak syllable, which means it makes a difference between strong syllable and the weak syllable. But if you say it does not make any difference. Put differently, the strength prosodic weight relation between at least syllable, for example, if you say artist, for example, artist in French, or artist, it makes a difference. The difference in terms of what? In prosodic weight. That is, it is the first one is given more weight than the second one. The relation between at least accent may fall on one syllable to show the intention of the speaker. That is, the role of accent and stress is clear enough. Notice that from the answer, from the answers to the question, that each time accent is shifted to the the intentional meaning of the speaker changes. If look at this one, if they shift, that is the intentions, the speaker's intention changes. That is, you have depending on the discourse, depending on the, that is here, depending on the context, you shift it. Shall I call Jim and Mary? You move from one element to another. Also, that is the intentional meaning of the speaker changes. Also, the words bearing the diacritic are monosyllabic, which means if you are talking about monosyllabic, which means they are syllabic words. We're talking about we were talking about accent, not stress. Once you change it to disyllabic, we're talking about stress, because they they consist of one syllable. Hence, they have our accent rather than stress. The primary function of stress is to show the syllable is stronger. That is, look at this one. Is stronger. Argument 2 is the primary stress is of the syllable is show that this syllable is given is stronger, weaker than neighbor syllable in the same word. Therefore, we cannot talk about stress until the word unless the word consists of two syllables. Disyllabic. Look at this one. Photographic. You change the stress which falls on, but change the meaning. That is photographic. That is, they change the category. Though you have noun, but they are not the same in meaning. Argument 3. The domain of stress is syllable, which means why the domain of stress is syllable? Because syllable, the crucial element with this obligatory constituent within syllable is a vowel, and the stress the vowel. When stress shifts to another syllable, it makes it than it was without it, which means when you stress this one, it makes a difference, because you feel that you are given much prominence to this one, stronger than the other one, and more prominent than the other one. And here, the speaker feels perceive that that is the syllable which is given stress is stronger compared to other than neighboring syllables. When conversely, when a syllable loses stress, it is perceived than before. That is, it loses stress. Like, for example, Canada. Look at the one. The ultimate syllable is weak. The vowel here, the ultimate syllable, the ultimate vowel, and the syllable here is very weak. Is weak. Why? Because the schwa is short, and it's not given as in stress. And here the stress, the syllable here is open, and is open and weak and sorry and light, because the vowel is reduced to schwa. And you have a rule in which you have a long vowel, it tends to be full vowel, and full vowel, which is a short vowel, which is lax vowel, it turns out of it can change to schwa. But full vowel or long vowel never ever can change to a schwa. The one which changes to a schwa is the lax vowel. Do you remember the difference between lax and tense? The tense vowel never ever change to schwa. It changes to short vowel, but not to reduce to schwa. And this one is very important in describing the data, especially we will see the Moroccan Arabic next time. And you have argument 4. In Canada, is phonetically full tense vowel. Look at that, tense and lax. Yes, that is here. It's given. This one is ultimate vowel, penultimate vowel, antepenultimate vowel. And antepenultimate vowel is tense vowel, and it's stronger, and it's given more prosodic weight, and compared to the surrounding one. This one, Canada, they are very weak. They are weak syllable. Same vowel reduced to schwa, the weakest form of a vowel in Canadian. Look at this one, Canadian. That is, stress falls on the second syllable or on the penultimate vowel. That is, when you're talking about the penultimate, you count from the right to left. When we're talking about syllable, from left to right. Where stress falls on the penultimate vowel, the one before the last, penultimate here. Argument 4. The nature of a syllable determines the application of phonological process. That is, if the nature, characteristic of the syllable, the structure of the syllable is, it can determine the application, can produce, can determine, can contribute to certain phonological processes. Why? Because if you stress that sound, that vowel in that particular environment, it creates it affects the neighboring syllables, the neighboring sound. And this one example is shown from Tamazigh. Tamazigh, if you want to more, you say 1978, which means here. That is pharyngalization in which means pharyngalization is emphasis in Berber, which means and it is sensitive to, it is conditioned by syllable structure. And if you stress a vowel in Berber, it's affects the domain, which creates certain phonological process. It means phonological processes create certain difference in pronunciation, either two levels. It creates certain sound, depending either in terms of point of articulation or in terms of what we call place of articulation. This is what we call phonological processes. For example, it creates share, etc. It depends if and only if there is a kind of syllable. Thomas Zeft said 1978 shows that emphasis pharyngeal express the neighboring speech sound in a manner strictly regulated by syllable structure. Means it is the syllable structure which create this one, which create this to affect the neighboring speech sound. Consider that is here this one. It's can be seen along the following lines the data in which it is you have dark and clear dark dark L and clear L. That is, dark L occurs in final position, and then you have, I have already explained this one. That is, you have a successive consonants, that is G and L. This one is creates a problem, or instead sensitive to conditioned by syllable structure. How do you know that it's conditioned by syllable structure? And what makes you say that it's conditioned by syllable? That is, you have a successive two consonant, and a two consonant, that is, you said that that's a two consonant. The vowel, you said that the vowel is the crucial element in a syllable, but no vowel is a syllable. That is why that is the sonorant sound, that is among the sounds that are sonorant, according to some languages, especially American languages. They say that these sounds can play of the vowel if and only if they are closer to the vowel. What do we mean by closer to the vowel? Which means they are what you call, they are syllabic, which means they play the role of the vowel. Therefore, they are, like for example, they are given certain diacritics, like for example, and the like for example here, bird as a vowel, but bird, that is three successive consonants, but this one is given, it plays the role of a vowel because it is a plusyllabic. And what sounds that are plusyllabics? Only the sounds that are sonorant. For example, l, r, m, n, etc. Depending on the language, these are sonorant sound, which means sonorant sound, they are created by certain much efforts to produce them. In the phonology literature, the discussion of syllables involves two elements. That is, discussion of syllables. The structure of syllables and the rhythmic relation characterization. That is the structure. What is the structure of syllable? What are the components is made up of? Why consider the nucleus is the most important element in the syllable? Why don't we consider the consonants are the most constituent elements of the syllable? Therefore, it allows these things, allows the phonologists to argue certain valid evidence the importance of the syllable structure. That is here. As we have seen above, the obligatory elements of syllable is the vowel. A syllable must contain a vowel, but not all syllables contain a vowel, because a syllable must contain a vowel. The vowel is the crucial element for a syllable because the stress falls on that vowel, but surrounded or flanked by optional consonant. You can do without a consonant syllable, but you cannot do without a vowel in a syllable. That's why we cannot talk about with a vowel. We can talk about syllable. The vowel is called the nucleus peak of the syllable. However, in some language, certain phones can play the role of the vowel, which means in certain languages like American English, the certain phones, certain sounds play the role of a vowel. That is, here it feels that here you feel that you don't have a vowel at all, but that r is considered. In the American English words above, the peak of the syllable is r. Other phones that play the role of vowel like l or mon, because these are plus sonorants. Except that is l, r, that is nasal liquids, and semivowels and vowels. But semivowels and vowels, you cannot insert them. That is, you insert the letter, because semivowels, they are vowels, they are pure vowels. And then you have semivowels. Sometimes they are neither pure vowel nor pure consonant. Therefore, there are semivowels between them. What we have plusyllabic sounds are considered as consonant. Among the consonants which are sonorant are plusyllabic, la, ra, man, etc., which means consonant, liquids, and nasals. As shown in 223 below, syllables in English may start with one consonant and three at most, which means they start at least with one consonant, most of three consonants, which means I have already seen, I have already told you that is the onset position must consist of maximum of three consonants, but the first one has to be X, the second one the choice of PTK, and the third one between the choice between two elements and the re. And they may end up in and in up to four consonants. The consonant in the syllable constitutes its onset, and the consonant ending the syllable is referred to coda or offset. You have onset, coda. Onset, you start it, the first sound like this one here. This one is the onset, and rhyme, the rhythm, the nucleus is the peak, and the coda offset and coda are optional. The crucial element is the rhyme. The representation here, this one. The peak of the syllable is the element where pitch, that is frequency of vocal cord vibration, increases, which creates intensity. That's why you have tense, loudness, and even length. Because the vowel which bears this one, either it is that is the frequency of vocal cord vibration, it increases, it creates intensity. That's why we call tense vowels and loud vowels, which is tense, or long vowels. That's why we present vowels which are long between two vowels: tense, loudness, and length. And this tense, loudness, and it's a part of phonological processes. It is the element which is said to bear stress or accent. Syllables are also classified as open, that is right, if the peak is not followed by any consonant. If the peak is empty, not followed by, is called light or open, and by any consonant, simple right. It is heavy, close, if the peak is followed by one consonant. This is what I said. Super heavy if it is followed, if the peak is followed by one or more consonant. That is one or more consonant. That is, you have either open and light. The vowel is open or light. It is not followed immediately followed by any consonant. If it is the vowel, the peak, the vowel is closed, is followed by a consonant. If it's heavy or close, it is followed by one consonant. If a syllable is super heavy, if the peak is followed by one or more than consonant, it's super heavy. Vowel, the peak, that is our nucleus, is not followed by any consonants. It is light and open. If it is close, heavy and close, if the peak or the nucleus is followed by one consonant. Super heavy, it is followed by more than one consonant. Is that clear? And where syllables stand for the word, and S, that is C, subscripts 0 stand for any number of consonants. This one is very important. We will see it next week. That is next week. That is, we want to read this one. That is, we have here V, vowel, C, V, C, 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 etc. We want to describe this one. This one, we want to collapse the rule into one rule. Suppose that you have the data vowel CV, CV. I want to collapse the rule because my rule must be economical. We need economy. That is the rule. You have to bear this in mind. The rules must be must include all the elements in the data in one rule. In other words, it must be economical, which means we need economy in the rule. And it can capture generalization. That the rule can capture all the generalization that exists in the data, as well as can include all sufficient. It is sufficient to describe the whole data. That's why my rule must be economical, as well as it can capture generalization. These are, and it cannot include, what do you mean? It cannot include, it must not include, that is, it's impossible to include, that is redundancy. Redundancy, which means additive elements, superfluous element to it, which means And we need economy and generalization in the rule. That's why, that is, you have this superscript and subscript, that is subscript 2, superscript 2, that is, you have this consonant which stands for the subscript 0, stands for any number of consonants, including 0. Any number of consonants, including 0. Here, superscript means a maximum of one consonant, and two consonants subscript indicates a minimum of consonants. If you have 0, that is 0, any number of consonants, including that there is no consonant at all, 0 consonants. Here, maximum of, if you deal with the one superscript means maximum. That is 2 or 3, maximum of 3 consonants. Here, consonant subscript 2 indicates a minimum of 2 consonants. That is, when you have subscript 0, any number of consonants, including 0. Maximum of one superscript, maximum of one consonant, minimum of 2 consonants. Therefore, this one, the rule that I have, V, C, V, C, C, V, C, 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 V, that is, you have the vowel here is repeated. But the consonant, something is wrong with the consonant. We have one consonant, sometimes we have 2 consonants, we have 3 consonants. Therefore, I want, this one is a syllable. I want to write the syllable structure here, the syllable boundary. And then I want to collapse the rule, which means I want to come up with one rule saying that you have this one. That is the vowel. We have the vowel, similar vowel here. I want to write the vowel. And here you have, the problem is here, is in this. That is, the vowel is preceded by one consonant. The vowel is preceded by one consonant, 2 consonants. The vowel is preceded by 3 consonants. Therefore, that is a vowel preceded by any number of consonants, including 0. By any number of consonants, according, maybe it's 3, maybe this one, maybe 1, maybe 0. That is this one. The rule says a vowel preceded by any number of consonants and followed by no consonant. Here, a vowel is preceded by any number of consonants, which means any number of consonants, including 0 here, and followed by no consonants. You have a CV, and I collapse the rule in one rule. This is what we will see in morphophonemics. Let's stop here. See you next week, and have a nice week. And I wish you happy Eid. Thank you so much, and start doing your exercises, please. If you don't do exercises, or not go any exercises till the exam, and you will be surprised. Thank you. Any question?
Thank you, Professor.
Any question?
Thank you, Professor.
Any question? Do you have any question?
No problem.
No questions. Start doing the exercise. Bye-bye.